Welcome to Mystic Realms Recap. Please like, share, and subscribe. Enjoy today's episode.
The days passed in a dull and busy way for a week. However, during this period, the Gallo Star region and the Yuhui Star region were not as peaceful as Chen Ming's every day. During his daily work and research, Chen Ming has always been paying attention to several places that may have big movements in the future. This includes the buffer zone bordering the Yuhui Star region and the Gallo Star region. According to Gamma B's investigation this week, starting from the second day after Chen Ming talked with Bai Quan of the 14th Legion, a large number of exploration drones or small-scale fleets appeared in this buffer zone, and they are constantly infiltrating into the Yuhui Star region. And these drones or fleets have no idea of conflict with the Yuhui fleet that is tracking them. Once they are discovered, they will flee as soon as possible. If the drones cannot escape, they will even choose to self-destruct on the spot, giving the Yuhui fleet no chance to arrest them. And those human ships that have not been discovered are still continuing to go deeper into the Yuhui Star region. Yuhui can only rely on a large number of ships to barely deal with these spacecraft, but it can only be solved temporarily. Humans are still spending a lot of resources to continue to transport spacecraft to the buffer zone, with a very clear purpose, which is to go deeper and transmit more intelligence back. This situation lasted for about 2 days. On the side where Yuhui and the mechanical race meet, that is, near the galaxy where Gamma Z is located, a large number of human ships also appeared. They set out from the Empire and traveled through the entire buffer zone between Yuhui and the mechanical race. From different locations, they began to infiltrate Yuhui's territory in a scattered manner, just like the other side. Even though Yuhui has a planet with a high degree of development of semi-military and semi-industrial due to the long-term war with the mechanical race, any spacecraft that wants to enter the Yuhui star field will be hit head-on. But in the current large-scale invasion of the human side at all costs, Yuhui has no way to completely block human ships from entering. And for humans who seem to only want to explore intelligence, they only need to let drones equipped with disposable high-intensity signal transmitters pass Yuhui's defense line in a short time. Keep going deeper, keep recording, keep scanning each planet with high intensity, and transmit back the information about the geographical features, various buildings, and various moving objects on it. As for the content of the information transmitted back, it doesn't matter at all, because they already knew where Chen Ming was from before. Such a large-scale investigation is obviously to interfere with Yuhui's judgment, making Yuhui think that they don't know Chen Ming's location yet, so as to relax their vigilance. And there is another meaning in this action, that is, the 14th Corps has begun the final preparations before the rescue work. The practice of constantly involving Yuhui's attention is part of the preparation, and Chen Ming, based on Gamma B's investigation and the information sent by Gamma A, who is now with Hui Yao all day. It can be found that the human side is intentionally or unintentionally concentrating the layout of these exploration drones and spacecraft to the galaxy where Chen Ming was before. This is also a means to make Yuhui make a wrong judgment. After all, it is impossible for the human side to have no clues about Chen Ming. If there are clues, there must be a final target. Therefore, the star system that Chen Ming left before could be used as a bait for Yuhui. All these signs indicate that the 14th Legion will make substantial moves before the psychic equipment is expected to arrive in 7 days. The target is definitely near Chen Ming's current location. Although the activities of the human side do not seem to have any impact on the star system where Chen Ming is. After all, the distance is there, and it still takes time to react and prepare, and compared to a colony, Chen Ming is definitely more important. However, since the 14th Legion has the intention to do so, it should consider all aspects of Yuhui clearly, and should also know the different ways for Yuhui to respond. So since Chen Ming is not a professional fighter, I believe they will be done with this kind of thing. Anyway, he did not put all his eggs in one basket. If the rescue of the 14th Legion really encountered an accident, Chen Ming also had other ways to go. So when Chen Ming investigated in Gamma B that humans began to infiltrate the Yuhui star field from the buffer zone of the Yuhui mechanical race, the tasks of searching for the human fleet appeared in the tasks that Yuhui usually issued to free Yuhui individuals on Gamma Z. Just for the sake of safety, Gamma Z went to another star system. Of course, This is based on the premise that Gamma Z has obtained enough chips by destroying the mechanical warships through the mission in the previous period. Even if it leaves now, Gamma Z will be able to upgrade to the beta level in a few days. Then it can return to the place where Chen Ming has controlled the most afterglows and integrate the overall situation for Chen Ming. Thinking of this, Chen Ming also took a look at the situation of the afterglows he controlled. At present, there are many places in the entire afterglow star field where Chen Ming controls afterglows. This naturally includes the afterglow industrial colony where Chen Ming stayed at the beginning, which has now become a reverse bait for humans. But even today, there are only 5 afterglow AIs controlled by Chen Ming. 2 of them were still in the independent small exploration stations that were arranged before, and they had no chance to contact other Yuhui. The remaining 3 Yuhui in the mining field had never changed their jobs. And no new Yuhui came here, and there was no way to contact the outside world. It could not develop at all. After returning to this galaxy, Hui Huang was responsible for some of Chen Ming's follow-up work in various places within the galaxy. So, there were also exchanges with these 5 Yue AIs. But Chen Ming was still not completely sure that Hui Huang could trust him, so for safety reasons, Chen Ming still let these 5 Yue remain normal and not have any other contact. After all, this place is nothing to Chen Ming. The Yue he controlled was mainly in 2 other places. One was the first place that Gamma Z arrived at after returning to the Yue star field, that is, the supply point planet. The situation here is much better than the planet Chen Ming had been on. After all, no Yue would pay attention to Gamma Z, who had nothing to do with Chen Ming and left immediately. Moreover, the afterglow that Chen Ming controlled first was the afterglow in the supply point, which could contact many free afterglows. So as long as the afterglow that came to the supply point later, basically the original afterglow of the supply point, found various reasons and excuses and opportunities. The afterglow spaceship that only came to supply was connected to the industrial equipment in the colony. Then, there was no more. As long as it came into contact with the industrial equipment controlled by the afterglow controlled by Chen Ming, the afterglow that was touched would also be controlled by Chen Ming. And he accepted it all without any abnormal performance. And the afterglow on the spaceship that had just been controlled and left the supply point could always go to various places and find various reasons to connect directly with other afterglows. Or like Gamma Z at the beginning, find other supply points, connect to the supply point equipment by connecting to the database, and assimilate it. As long as all the supply points of a planet are controlled, there will be no afterglow on this planet that can escape Chen Ming's clutches. Of course, in order to make everything look reasonable and normal, Chen Ming would not let these Yue drive a ship to visit the supply points of the entire planet directly. Just let them follow the normal behavior logic, relying on different individuals, gradually control all the supply points on the planet. If you really want to control the supply points of the entire planet quickly and undetected, you can only rely on reasonable overall planning. But Chen Ming's computing power is not enough to do this, so he can only wait until Gamma Z is upgraded to beta level before trying again. However, despite various restrictions, as of today, there are already 1/5 of Yue on the planet with energy crystal crabs where Gamma Z landed, and all of them are controlled by Chen Ming. There are also some Yue in key departments. For example, Yue who has the authority to build a space elevator for the convenience of material transportation, and Yue who is in charge of the material transportation authority of various advanced resource mining sites. In addition, although there is no Chen Ming's plan on the planet, 80% of the supply points have been controlled in the normal activities of Yue individuals. The Yue on this planet has completely formed a climate. In a few days, the entire planet will be completely controlled by Chen Ming. And the pressure of such a number of afterglows on Chen Ming in terms of mental power is not even as great as that of actually controlling a frigate. So Chen Ming is very confident about the future development of these afterglows. In addition to the planet where the energy crystal crab is located, the entire galaxy outside is now full of them. There are 2 other colonies in this galaxy, although only about 1/10 of the afterglows are controlled by Chen Ming. But similarly, many supply points on these 2 planets have been controlled. And the afterglow controlled by Chen Ming is also actively developing towards the key departments of the planet. When the afterglow of the energy crystal crab planet has taken care of the planet, the remaining two planets will also become Chen Ming's possession in a short time. Now it seems that the only problem is that there is indeed no afterglow above the beta level in different colonies. But there are a total of 3 industrial colonies in the galaxy, all of which are well developed, and there is also an energy crystal crab in one colony. So there must be an alpha in the galaxy to take charge of the overall situation, and it is likely that he will take charge of everything on an independent space station in the galaxy. The afterglow controlled by Chen Ming had found a space station that was not open to ordinary afterglow individuals in the galaxy, on the orbit of a high-temperature planet close to a star. The alpha afterglow in the galaxy must be there. Although ordinary afterglows do not have the authority to enter, Chen Ming has already found an afterglow individual with the authority to enter that galaxy. Next, it only takes a suitable opportunity to control it, and then find a suitable reason to control it before the alpha-level afterglow can react. It should be known that it has only been a week since Gamma Z left the seeds here, and it has already infiltrated several key places on the planet. The expansion speed in the other 2 colonies is slower, but the efficiency is also very good. As long as a few more days are given, the afterglow controlled by Chen Ming can engulf the entire galaxy. In addition to the galaxy where the energy crystal crab planet is located, the second best development momentum of the afterglow controlled by Chen Ming is the afterglow that Gamma Z has stayed and the industrial colony on the front line of the mechanical race. In addition to its large amount of military equipment and excavated resources sent directly to military factories, this planet also has another feature. There are many supply points here, and the area is often very large. Because battles often occur here on the front line, a large number of afterglow individuals return here every moment and need repairs. As the demand for supply points increases, more and bigger supply points will naturally be built. As long as the supply points where Gamma Z has been, all of them will control the individuals of afterglow with a higher efficiency than the supply points on the crystal crab side. So far, many military factories on the planet have fallen under Chen Ming's control, but they are still maintaining the previous production orders. At the same time, there are also a considerable number of Yuhui who have superior logic blocks in combat and are controlled by Chen Ming. Almost each of them has its own spaceship, and its combat effectiveness is considerable. If you add up all the afterglows that Chen Ming currently controls, it is already a force that cannot be underestimated. But it's not enough. For the entire star field of afterglow, these current afterglows are not enough. If Chen Ming dares to take action directly now, the final result will be that the planet is destroyed, the fleet is destroyed, and all the afterglows controlled by him die. Even though there are many Yuhui who can escape by means of spaceships, without Yuhui's own industrial colony, Chen Ming simply cannot afford the current number of Yuhui and Yuhui spaceships. And there will definitely be a general cleaning inside Yuhui. Any Yuhui with special performance will not be able to survive on Yuhui. Yuhui as a whole will definitely reach a new level of strict control over external materials. There is no chance that Chen Ming can continue to obtain material support from Yuhui. At that time, he may be forced by the situation to do something he doesn't want to do. So until today, Chen Ming has not regarded the afterglows he controlled as part of his own power, but as existences similar to mercenaries. This is the only reason. He can't support these fleets now. When one day Chen Ming's logistics capabilities can keep up, Chen Ming will consider bringing these Yuhui under his command. So now, Chen Ming still plans to continue to wait for the afterglow to slowly expand. Moreover, some of the afterglows he controlled had spread to the surrounding galaxies long before the afterglow individuals on the crystallized crab planet had developed. These spreading afterglows will be like viruses spreading without any symptoms at all, and no individual can detect them. When it erupts, it will bring about unprecedented terrifying effects for afterglow. After Chen Ming confirmed the overall situation of the afterglow he controlled, he devoted himself to daily research. His research on the frigate shield he originally designed has entered the final stage, and a result should be available in the next few days. At the same time, far away in the Gallo Star territory of the human empire, in the General Command Room where the 14th Army is currently stationed, an offline joint meeting is taking place. As long as there was a legitimate reason for rescuing Chen Ming, they all sent people here. The meeting was already halfway through. In the center of the conference table in front of Bai Quan, a three-dimensional projection is showing the entire afterglow star field. Before them, they sent out drones and fleets in large numbers to scan many galaxies in the afterglow star region. Most of the galaxies displayed above had very detailed and accurate information. Among them, the galaxy where Chen Ming has been and the galaxy where Chen Ming is now are highlighted. Let the attendees' attention basically focus on this. Bai Quan moved his hand and zoomed in on the industrial colony galaxy where Chen Ming had been, revealing the conditions inside the galaxy. The industrial colony planet where Chen Ming stayed was specially marked. He cleared his throat and said, "The next step is the planning for the second half. We have currently dispatched a large number of drones and small fleets to attract Afterglow's attention. And now it can be clearly felt that Yuhui has been fooled. They believe that we have and only discovered that Chen Ming is on this planet. So they are actively cooperating with us and deploying more ships here. They really hope that we will only focus on this place. We will continue to implement the original plan. Before the estimated time of delivery of Afterglow's psychic equipment, send enough fleets to this system to attract Afterglow's firepower. Then, according to the previous agreement, Shinda Company will be responsible for this matter." Bai Quan looked at the representatives of Shinda Company at the meeting and said, "I need you to show enough desire to get close to this planet. But we have to control the scale carefully. We can't successfully land on the planet directly. This is to ensure that Yuhui will allocate enough fleet power to find you first. Is there a problem?" The representative of Shinda Company and the director in charge of the pirate space station said with a slightly unhappy face, "No, but I hope that the 14th Legion can keep its promise." Shinda Company received the news that Chen Ming had been transferred to another place, and also learned the subsequent investigation of the situation of the galaxy to which Chen Ming was transferred. It was already clear that they could not rely on their own battleship to rescue Chen Ming alone. So this director was sent to the 14th Legion to cooperate with the 14th Legion to complete the subsequent tasks. In order to protect their final interests, Sky Steel. As long as the profits from Sky Steel can finally fall into their hands. Even if Chen Ming is gone, it is still an acceptable result. Bai Quan did not intend to embezzle Sky Steel from the beginning, so he agreed quite decisively, "Please rest assured, everyone here is a witness." He retracted his gaze and continued, "Later, when the main battleship of Shinda Company successfully attracted the attention of the Yuhui main battleship. That's the time for our remaining fleet to jump in here." Bai Quan zoomed in and out the projection in the center of the conference table and refocused on Chen Ming's current planet. And on the projection of this planet, there is also a precisely marked location. This location is a rough latitude and longitude coordinate obtained based on Chen Ming's own observation of the starry sky, which will be used as a reference for the rescue operation. I confirmed the specific coordinates with Chen Ming a few days ago. He can send a specific signal frequency on the planet to help us locate him when our fleet arrives. When the defense line of Yuhui is broken, the deployment of ground forces will be fully guaranteed by our 14th Corps. The final rescue mission will also be carried out by us. At that time, we will arrange a cruiser to take him away through the jump. Bai Quan did not say much about the 14th Corps' own mission and quickly jumped to the next stage. After the rescue is successful, the remaining spacecraft need to jump into the core galaxy of Yuhui. "Did you see it here?" Bai Quan said, zooming in on the galaxy again, locating it in a galaxy in the center of the most core circle of colonies in the Yuhui galaxy. Among the dozens of star systems in this core area, this is the only volcanic planet with frequent geological activities. The Kleka supercomputer, which requires an extremely low-temperature environment to cool, must be here. In order to destroy it, we need to solve the planetary shield generator that must be set up on the planet. This requires a special EMP weapon. Bai Quan looked at the representative of Tachyon Technology. The representative of Tachyon Technology asked back, "The drones we provide are of good quality, right?" "Yes, they are." "Then our weapons will have such quality." Bai Quan nodded and continued, "We aim to destroy Kleka, and we expect to encounter 3 UA battleships on the way." The representative of Tachyon immediately said, "Our battleship is on the way, the Exemplar-class battleship." It just appeared on your front lines some time ago. You should know it. So, what are you going to do? Bai Quan waved his hand and projected the appearance of the 3 battleships on the conference table. Without exception, they all had extremely exaggerated heavy armor. 2 offensive-class heavy battleships and 1 core-class aviation battleship. We are the main force in the battle with Yuhui. The Tachyon technology representative nodded and looked at the government representative next door. Bai Quan also said at this time, then in terms of logistics, the government representative immediately said, we will ensure it. By then, we will have the Astra class and Prometheus class to ensure the supply of materials and fuel. The Tachyon technology representative sitting next to the government representative looked at the government representative with interest and said, I haven't heard of this model. The Colossus class is not comfortable to use, so you designed a new cruiser class? Your government doesn't support it with a battleship? The government representative glanced at him and said, these 2 ships are battleships. Several people at the conference table looked at the government representative in surprise. The government representative said with a mixture of pride and sadness on his face, this is distributed by the general government. You have already started to develop a new generation of battleships, and we must not fall behind. But with the separation of military and politics, our government can only design this kind of logistical battleship. He took out a document from the file bag in front of him and slapped it on the table. Here are the carrying capacity data of the Astra-class superfreighter and the Prometheus-class fuel transport ship. Bai Quan took the document from the assistant next to him, and after a brief look, he said, no problem. Then let's end the meeting here. I hope I can see you all again in the future. After the offline joint meeting ended, all the participants left the meeting room soon. Only Bai Quan was left in the meeting room to sort out the current intelligence situation. After reviewing the plan and confirming that there were no omissions, he also left the meeting room with the documents. Bai Quan will be the commander-in-chief of the joint fleet in the future, so his schedule will be very tight. He needs to hurry up to complete some other tasks. For example, he is about to check the docks that will be used to accommodate several battleships that will be delivered. The current base of the 14th Legion was taken directly from the Star Zone military. Although the Star Zone military has no battleships to call, there is still a dock for battleship-level spacecraft, which is in the circumstellar orbit. It has not been used for many years, so after it is reactivated, the maintenance and renovation of the entire dock must be guaranteed. When Bai Quan just took over here, he had already started to let professionals take charge of this work. However, because the workload is too large, it has not been completed until today. So he must go and check it in person, in order to avoid the 3 battleships from finding that they have nowhere to park when they arrive. After arranging several things nearby, Bai Quan took the guards on a high-speed frigate prepared in advance, took off, and flew out of the base under the protection of the dome, flying to the circumstellar orbit of the volcanic planet under their feet, flying to the giant space building located in the circumstellar orbit. The scale of this giant space building is close to that of a normal space station, and the size difference with the pirate space station is only within a quarter. But this is not a pirate space station with 30 different professional functional space arms and a complete city. This space building is just a dock. The purpose is to carry the battleship's hull that has exceeded 10,000 meters. At the same time, the giant dock is also equipped with some defensive measures such as fixed artillery, which can also be regarded as a line of defense for the planet below. Before, the Star Zone military only maintained this part that could fight, and the battleship dock was basically in a semi-abandoned state. Otherwise, after the 14th Legion took over, there would be no need to spend so much time to maintain the entire dock. This also shows how far the military of the Star Zone has fallen. When the people on the frigate can see the giant dock with their naked eyes, Bai Quan raised his head from the official document on the terminal in his hand. At this time, in addition to being able to see the appearance of the entire giant dock, he can also see a large number of engineering ships distributed in various corners outside the dock. The lasers for detecting the structure and the sparks from the joining of the plates are constantly appearing outside the dock. The maintenance and renovation of the giant dock is still continuing. Bai Quan took a look and asked the guard who was the driver to drive the frigate directly into the dock through an entrance for small and medium-sized spacecraft on the side of the dock. The multiple obstacles that originally required the inspection of the spacecraft were cleared all the way for Bai Quan, allowing him to quickly enter the innermost part of the giant dock. That is where the staff inside the giant dock usually work and live. After being received by the person in charge of dock maintenance, Bai Quan greeted him and borrowed a destroyer-class engineering ship. He continued to let a guard following him drive, while he sat in the co-pilot's seat. Bai Quan took the engineering ship and came to the empty ship position inside the dock for the main battleship. There are also a large number of engineering ships working here, from the smallest shuttle size to cruise-level engineering ships. According to the size and equipment installed on the engineering ship, they are responsible for different tasks. In addition to repairing the walls next to the ship position, these internal engineering ships also need to repair the countless ship repair equipment that is usually hidden in the dock wall and occupies most of the area. Although the size of the main battleship determines that it must have the ability to self-repair, these repair equipment are still necessary for the armor and some other external equipment outside the main battleship. Although Bai Quan is not a professional repairman, he has a general understanding of the equipment for repairing spacecraft after many years of military service. He can see that the repair progress inside the dock is approaching the final stage. It can basically be guaranteed to be completed before the arrival of the next few main battleships. After seeing that the situation was not bad, Bai Quan continued to let the guards drive the engineering ship to patrol the interior, and then planned to go outside to check some places that he had not seen when he came in just now. At this time, a huge amount of electric sparks suddenly broke out in a place very close to Bai Quan's engineering ship, which could be said to be right above his head where equipment and lines were densely distributed. Several engineering ships that were just nearby quickly withdrew, and a large amount of fire-extinguishing foam was directly poured on them. The situation was quickly controlled. Accidents are inevitable in the absence of maintenance for a long time. Since Bai Quan has just seen that the maintenance work in other places is almost done, even if there are some accidents in this place, they will definitely be dealt with soon. Bai Quan did not stay any longer and said to the guard in charge of driving, "Get out of the way, let's continue." The guard immediately executed the order and flew towards the outside of the giant dock, requested by Bai Quan. But before the engineering ship could speed up, a huge amount of electric arcs suddenly broke out at the location where the fire had just been extinguished. The electric arc broke through the vacuum and hit several engineering ships that approached after the open fire was extinguished. The same dazzling electric arcs flashed on several ships, and their engines were instantly shut down. The burning hull and the slight explosion caused by the electric arc breaking through the hull of the engineering ship caused several ships to lose control. And one of the cruiser-level engineering ships accurately hit the location where Bai Quan was. Even if the engineering ship that hit was the size of a cruiser, it would not be difficult to avoid it. However, at the moment when the guard wanted to control the spacecraft, a large area of red suddenly appeared on the control panel in front of him. All the control devices lost contact at this time. The arc that continued to spread on the cruiser-class engineering ship also hit the engineering ship where Bai Quan was at this time, and both spacecrafts completely lost control. The engineering ship where Bai Quan was hit by the cruiser-class engineering ship and was crushed directly against the wall on one side of the dock. The external communication of the engineering ship was cut off and contact was lost. Bai Quan's life and death were unknown. The emergency here in the 14th Corps was quickly completely confined to the 14th Corps' base, and no news was spread. And at least for a period of time, this matter would not spread. 2 days later, Chen Ming completed his previously planned research on shields during the afternoon study time. That is, the feasibility study on distinguishing multi-layer microdifference shield amplitude frequency in a single-layer shield. After all, it was only a product of Chen Ming's college graduation period, and it was a flawed existence, so the research speed was very fast. So he can now modify his spaceship with the modification named Layered Shield Generator on the panel. This modification can make the shield that looks like it has only one layer generate different shield amplitude frequencies inside. It is equivalent to cutting a thick layer of armor into multiple layers of weaker armor. However, unlike armor, as long as the attack on the shield is not continuous or too powerful, then even if the shield suffers damage beyond its own limit, it can offset all the subsequent overflow damage and will not let the armor under the shield bear it. Chen Ming's shield can have similar effects many times. Divide the shield into different layers and connect different layers to the spacecraft's radiation energy system in sections. When one layer of shield is overloaded, other shield layers can continue to bear the damage. The biggest advantage of this shield is that it can bear a lot of extra damage when facing weapons that are particularly effective against shields but have a low attack frequency. And of course, this thing also has disadvantages. There are multiple layers of different amplitude frequencies inside the shield, which will reduce the strength of the shield itself to a certain extent. And it is not very effective for high-frequency attacks, and it will only have a particularly significant effect when facing low-frequency attacks. But no matter what, this is just the product of Chen Ming's university graduation thesis, and it is also the first result of his research. So Chen Ming feels that it can still be used as a transitional shield to support his spacecraft. And Chen Ming now has some ideas in his mind for the design of a shield to resist high-frequency attacks. As long as the new shield is developed, he can use these two shields alternately. At the same time, continue to develop more powerful shields in the future. Chen Ming removed his hands from the control panel of the Research Institute work area in front of him and directly transformed the actual shield he had actually manufactured onto the iron ore. After a brief trial of the effect, Chen Ming put down the work at hand and rested for a while. During the rest, Chen Ming took a look at the situation on the Gamma Z side. 2 days later, Gamma Z has been successfully upgraded to beta level. At this time, it has returned to the Yuhui galaxy where the energy crystal crab planet is located. The number of Yuhui controlled by Chen Ming in this galaxy has more than tripled in the past 2 days. The energy crystal crab planet has been fully controlled by Chen Ming, and there is no Yuhui on the entire planet that is out of Chen Ming's control. Any foreign Yuhui who dares to land directly on the planet will not escape the fate of being controlled by Chen Ming. There are still many areas that need to be developed on the other 2 colony planets, but since there is already the energy crystal crab planet, it is only a matter of time before the remaining 2 planets are completely controlled. So in this case, when Gamma Z returned to this galaxy, Chen Ming directly asked him to be responsible for the overall planning and began to arrange the plan for the alpha-level afterglow inside the galaxy. Chen Ming gave full authority to Gamma Z to handle this matter. After all, he did not understand the rules of afterglow at all, and intervening at will would only have side effects. Although what Gamma Z had to do seemed difficult, it was actually simple. The difficulty was that Gamma Z needed to find an afterglow with authority and find a reasonable reason to allow it to enter the space station that was not open to the public. The simplicity was that after the afterglow with authority entered the space station, as long as he found an opportunity to access the center of the space station, then all the afterglows in the entire space station would be controlled by Chen Ming, regardless of level. So Gamma Z could be said to be quite relaxed when completing Chen Ming's task. It took half a day to find a suitable afterglow, and it happened that this afterglow had a task to go to that space station. So, the entire galaxy could be said to have completely fallen into Chen Ming's hands. Alpha-level afterglow was also controlled by Chen Ming, and the mental consumption of controlling it was no different from that of other afterglow AI. But after Chen Ming finished this task and reviewed the situation inside the galaxy as a whole, he still thought that only this one galaxy was far from enough. There are 3 colonies in this galaxy, all of which are industrial colonies. They mainly produce ores and various spacecraft hulls, weapons, and fuels. In the entire galaxy, there is no industrial facility that can produce these industrial facilities. At the same time, there is a lack of some materials necessary for industrial production, and material transportation from other afterglow galaxies is required. So once Chen Ming makes any move, Afterglow does not even need to attack this galaxy directly. As long as the transportation of materials is blocked, the several colonies inside the galaxy will soon collapse. So even if Chen Ming controls this galaxy, he can only leave it there for now and let it continue to develop normally. At the same time, the Alpha Afterglow controlled by Chen Ming must ensure that everything is normal and cannot be discovered by Afterglow. Continue to hide and continue to support the spread of Afterglow controlled by Chen Ming. But Chen Ming also asked them to be ready at all times. Because the Alpha-class Afterglow can control cruisers, and there is a spare one in this space station. When Chen Ming needs it, that is, When the afterglow intends to attack him, the cruiser can immediately come to rescue Chen Ming. It's just that because the 14th Legion is also carrying out rescue work, Chen Ming is not in a hurry to say he wants to leave. Anyway, he has already kept this second level of life-saving means. As long as the situation is not so urgent that he is forced to use the unstable hyperspace jump engine, he can always wait for the cruiser equipped with the stable jump engine to rescue him. Of course, if these afterglows can be kept secret, they should be kept secret as much as possible. The longer it is delayed, the wider the range of their spread, the more afterglows they control, and the more benefits Chen Ming gets. And now, at least in this galaxy, Chen Ming is the boss. He can rely on his authority to provide some convenience to Gamma Z in the galaxy, such as some mechanical chips it needs now. Alpha-class Afterglow has the right to manage these things. As long as the accounts are balanced in the end, no problems will be found. At the same time, there are many other benefits waiting for Chen Ming to slowly discover. Of course, this requires time to study and complete. So Chen Ming handed this task to Gamma Z again, and let it cooperate with Alpha-class Afterglow to see if there is anything that Chen Ming can take away. Chen Ming's main focus is still on the research of new technologies and the improvement of his own technology. One day later, after breakfast, Chen Ming walked inside the institute, thinking about work while thinking about today. Today is 3 days since he started his research on the shield, and it is also the 10th day since he and Baiquan talked about it. Previously, the 14th Legion expected that Afterglow's psychic equipment would be delivered in half a month, that is, 5 days later. So before that, he'd better. Chen Ming's thoughts had just emerged halfway, and he suddenly noticed that there was something more in the experimental area of the institute. At some point, a new device that he had never seen appeared in the empty space. And that location was definitely reserved for the psychic device that Yu Hui had sent. This unexpected scene made Chen Ming panic for a moment. He almost made Gamma Z move. Fortunately, the device was just placed there and was not started. There were many robots gathered around the device, and it seemed that they were actually debugging the device. Chen Ming pretended to walk into the experimental area unintentionally and tried to ask the robots at work, "What is this?" G3, who was controlling these robots, did not directly throw a document to Chen Ming as before, but said, "This device, like other psychic devices, can strengthen your mental power." Really? Chen Ming asked this, and did not wait for G3 to answer, leaning against the wall next to him and watching quietly. G3 did not stop him, and after some operations, he let all the robots that were maintaining the equipment disperse and started the device at the same time. This device looks like an ergonomic recliner, but also like an operating table. After starting, some psychic fluctuations were emitted from the head of the operating table. Chen Ming, who was right next to him, did feel a sense of mental power being stimulated. But at the same time, he also sensed a subtle danger from inside the device. G3 did not intend to stop the device after starting it, but he called Chen Ming to start today's work. In order to prevent G3 from noticing, Chen Ming had to turn around and leave. He looked back at the device before leaving the experimental area. Chen Ming could clearly feel that the psychic energy fluctuation intensity of the psychic device was increasing at a slow rate. And as the psychic energy fluctuation intensity increased, the impact of this device on Chen Ming's mental power was also increasing. However, the growth rate seemed to have a limit. When Chen Ming's mental power was disturbed by the device, he seemed to feel the upper limit of the psychic energy fluctuation intensity of the device. This was an inexplicable feeling, but Chen Ming chose to believe it. When the psychic energy fluctuation reached its strongest, it must be the time when this device was truly activated. According to the current growth rate, Chen Ming felt that it would take about a week. After the time set by the 14th Legion. This was good news for Chen Ming. That's right. Chen Ming immediately realized what he should do at this time. He immediately contacted Baiquan through the faint light of the pirate space station and followed the communication code he had previously contacted. However, after the communication was connected, the person who talked to Chen Ming was not Baiquan, but someone else Chen Ming did not know. Although Chen Ming was a little confused, he still said, "Is it the operator? I need to talk to Baiquan." The other end of the communication was silent for a long time, until Chen Ming was wondering if he had dialed the wrong number, and then the other end said, Major General Bai Quan doesn't have time to see you now. Where is he? This has nothing to do with you, Mr. Chen Ming. You just need to do your job well, and we will handle the rest. Question mark. The operator's words made Chen Ming very uncomfortable and at the same time very confused. Bai Quan can't even discipline his subordinates, right? Isn't it right? He is a major general, and his subordinates did such a thing, which is a loss of face for him. But Chen Ming really has no way to contact Bai Quan directly now, and he doesn't need to quarrel with an operator. Then please tell me a message. Just say that the equipment over there has been delivered in advance. According to my observation, it will take about a week to prepare for the startup. You'd better act as soon as possible, and remember to notify me. The operator casually responded twice and hung up the communication. Hearing the busy tone in the communication, Chen Ming felt more and more strange. After thinking about it, he simply contacted Lao Wu and planned to ask the company about Baichuan's situation. Lao Wu got on Chen Ming's spaceship as before. But before Chen Ming spoke, he said, Let me tell you first, Xiao Ming, the attitude of the company towards you seems to have suddenly become worse. I don't know what unexpected situation has happened. Chen Ming frowned and asked, Is there such a thing? Yes, Lao Lu and I both think it's strange. He is still asking, and I don't know what's going on. Chen Ming connected the two things together at once. The attitudes of the 14th Corps and the company suddenly changed together. There must be some connection behind this. But without intelligence, Chen Ming really couldn't confirm the truth. So Chen Ming could only say to Lao Wu, the company's attitude should wait for the factory director to settle it. I have something else to ask you. Please help me send a message to the company. Okay, you say. Chen Ming repeated what he said to the operator of the 14th Corps. He did this not because he was afraid that the Corps or the company would not save him. After all, he already controlled one of Yu Hui's cruisers and was fully capable of escaping directly. It didn't matter to him whether they rescued him or not. Chen Ming contacted the Corps and the company mainly because he was worried that Yu Hui's sudden rescue and acquisition of the psychic equipment might affect their arrangements. Problems with their arrangements might indirectly lead to problems on Chen Ming's side. That's why Chen Ming contacted both sides in succession and notified them of the news. But there was only so much Chen Ming could do, and he didn't know whether this sudden change in attitude would have any impact on what happened later. After confirming that Old Wu remembered what he said, Chen Ming suddenly remembered something and said to Old Wu, Does the boss have any news for me? Old Wu shook his head, then suddenly nodded and said, Yes, yes. But Old Wu went to his colony a few days ago and said that there were some problems there that he needed to solve personally. He said that if you find him, use the emergency number to contact him if there is something urgent, but he also said that he did not attend the meeting later, so you don't need to find him for this matter, and he can't do anything about it. Chen Ming exhaled slightly and said, Okay, I know. Then the task of passing the message is left to you. Contact me if there is a response. Okay. The communication was hung up. Chen Ming sighed. It seems that he can't use the relationship with the boss to find out why the 14th Corps and the company suddenly changed their attitude. As expected, in the end, people can only rely on themselves. After listening to what Lao Wu said, who rushed to his office, the factory director took out the terminal and dialed a communication code. After the communication was connected, he did not say hello and said directly, Please connect me to the chairman. There was silence on the other end of the communication for a while, and the voice of Su Lin, chairman of Xinda Company, rang out, Xiao Lu. I want to ask what the company means now. The chairman knew what the factory director was asking, and also knew why Chen Ming asked such a question. He did not hide it and said, The company needs to get out of Chen Ming's matter now. Why? Because there is no benefit in Chen Ming. The factory director and Lao Wu next to him frowned at once. Before the factory manager could continue to question, the chairman said, In the beginning, Chen Ming was indeed worth our efforts, and this value has been growing. However, since Chen Ming was transferred to a new place, we have lost the ability to rescue him alone. And the 14th Corps has it. So as long as we want to save Chen Ming, we must not bypass the 14th Corps. They will not give up Chen Ming. Even if we rescue him, we can't get the value of Chen Ming himself. Therefore, The chairman slightly lengthened his tone to give the factory manager time to think. At the board meeting, we decided to exchange Chen Ming for more stable income, sky steel, and some other preferential treatment. Some time ago, we got the priority bidding right for the patrol fleet of the Star Region government through our connection with Chen Ming. Now, the 14th Corps can help us get the annual priority bidding right of the Star Region military. The combination of these two is a huge benefit to the company. At the same time, it will completely squeeze out the value that can be obtained from Chen Ming. Without value, there is no need for us to continue to invest resources in Chen Ming. Dong at this time, the chairman suddenly changed the subject and said, "Of course I don't think so. I think it's not a bad thing to continue to invest some resources in Chen Ming and to have a good relationship with him. But what I said doesn't count. It's useless for me to vote against it alone. The company's attitude depends on the results of the vote of all directors at the board meeting." In short, the company's attitude is to minimize contact and prevent Chen Ming's ability from affecting the company's future profits. The factory director is clear about the operation of the company's senior management, and there is nothing to refute the chairman's statement. It has become an established fact. But there is one thing he needs to ask clearly. What is the current situation of the military? Xiao Ming just came to ask and said that he couldn't contact the 14th Corps. The chairman recalled and said, the 14th Corps entered a closed management state 2 days ago and no longer communicated with the outside world in terms of daily communications and material personnel. Even now, we have no means to contact them actively. The fleet in the past can only be in place there and wait for the notification of the 14th Corps to start action. The 14th Corps is the commander-in-chief. We can't compete with them in military quality, so we can only listen to others. The factory director asked in confusion, "What should we do then?" The chairman immediately replied, "Just one thing, help the 14th Corps attract attention. The rest has nothing to do with us." When will we start? It depends on the 14th Corps. Notify me before you start. Notify Chen Ming, right? Yes. It depends on the situation. After all, if a fight breaks out suddenly, the news may not be transmitted back in advance. The factory director did not speak and tacitly agreed with the chairman's statement. The factory director fell silent, and the chairman suddenly put away his upright tone and said to the factory director like an ordinary person, "Xiao Lu, when will you come back? Your mother misses you very much." "I've said it many times, that's not." The factory director suddenly sighed and started to talk about family matters with the chairman. And Old Wu quietly left the office. Chen Ming didn't have to wait long for Old Wu's response. Old Wu first repeated to Chen Ming what the factory director and the chairman had just said. Then he said, according to his own understanding, "I feel that closed management is normal. After all, to save you, we have to go deep into Yu Hui's hometown. Any problem in any link is likely to cause huge losses. And you also know that in addition to the several forces at the joint meeting, there are many other people who have ideas about you. Especially Zhu Jing and the original Star Zone army. There is nothing wrong with what Old Wu said, and it is indeed a reason. However, although the 14th Legion has closed management of the company or any other forces and does not contact them, there is no problem. But keeping Chen Ming, the rescue target, under closed management and cutting off contact is strange. What is the 14th Corps doing? What is Bai Quan doing? Is he going to break his promise? 3 more questions popped up in Chen Ming's mind. However, just like before, the questions will never be answered before getting enough intelligence. Chen Ming couldn't blame Lao Wu and the factory director. They could only do so much. But the intelligence will make him more and more dangerous here. So Chen Ming must consider retreating. However, he still doesn't want to leave now. Because if he wants to leave directly now, he must pass through the alpha-level afterglow controlled by him. This means that the afterglow controlled by Chen Ming will be exposed 100%. But if Chen Ming doesn't leave, as long as he delays for 1 day, the number of afterglows he controls outside will increase by 1 day. As long as he is not discovered, he may even be able to take the afterglow of the entire star field into his own hands directly from the inside. With such huge benefits in front of him, it is really difficult for him to give up. But Chen Ming suddenly shuddered. He remembered the deadline he had set for himself before. After he had made the previous plan, he had planned to find a way to leave the day before Yu Hui delivered the equipment, regardless of whether the 14th Legion had taken action or not. Although there were some minor accidents now, Yu Hui got the psychic equipment in advance. Fortunately, it took time to start, which continued to delay Yu Hui's action. However, Chen Ming felt that it was necessary to abide by the time set by the previous deadline. Greed is definitely not a good thing. For days later, no matter what happened on that day, he had to leave. The psychic power strength of the psychic equipment that Yu Hui had just delivered was increasing every moment, and the sense of danger it brought to him was increasing every moment. What this foreshadowed was self-evident. Even if he continued to keep more Yu Hui that he could control, it would be meaningless if he lost his life. After thinking it over, Chen Ming refocused his attention on his work. While completing the work at hand, he was also paying attention to the situation of the newly delivered psychic equipment. Looking for possible opportunities to leave sabotage means on the equipment. However, G3's monitoring of the equipment is so strict that there is no gap at all. Several cameras were installed in the room where the equipment was installed to ensure that there were no blind spots. At the same time, at least 3 robots were guarding the room 24 hours a day. Every time Chen Ming passed by, a robot would follow him, and there was no way to start. 2 days passed in the blink of an eye. Chen Ming didn't find any opportunities at all. At this time, there were still 2 days before the deadline. Chen Ming's mind was full of thoughts about this aspect, and after breakfast, he continued to work today. However, just halfway through the work, G3 suddenly stopped moving, as if he had left. G3? G3 didn't reply, and after a while he came back online and said, "Mr. Chen Ming, today's work task is temporarily suspended. Please come to the experimental area to assist me in checking your mental state." G3's words sounded normal, but Chen Ming felt that what he said this time was different from before. The experimental area that Chen Ming looked at gave him a tingling sense of danger. So Chen Ming hesitated and asked it, "What are you going to do today?" G3 responded, "As usual, strengthen your mental power." Chen Ming didn't believe G3's words at all. Today, it is likely that the psychic device will be activated. But this device has not reached the limit of the psychic strength that Chen Ming feels, so why is it activated early? One after another, Chen Ming's heart is full of uncontrollable anxiety in addition to the tension about what may happen next. Problems piled up in his mind, but none of them could be solved. This anxiety made it difficult for Chen Ming to calm down. Suddenly, Chen Ming subconsciously glanced at the camera of the iron, or for some reason. Then he found that in the space above his head, there were countless flames and energy agitations. Chen Ming was stunned for a moment and thought about what caused this. This is a battle in space. Chen Ming's attention was about to be drawn away by this scene, but he suddenly heard some movement behind him and turned around to look. A mechanical arm stretched out from a robot that usually assists in work, and a tranquilizer gun was connected to it. Chen Ming's nervousness, anxiety, and panic were instantly suppressed by his experience of many things he had experienced. And he also thought clearly in an instant what was the right approach in the current situation. A large amount of white metallic liquid overflowed from Chen Ming's palm, covering his entire body. In the blink of an eye, a set of white cloud steel exoskeleton frame covered the outer layer of the protective suit and connected to the protective suit. The armor plate followed closely and covered the exoskeleton frame, completely protecting Chen Ming inside. The internal energy source was the self-storage material that Chen Ming had learned from Yu Hui before. Even if Chen Ming's modification could not transform the energy together, the self-storage material alone was enough for the exoskeleton armor to move. The tightly protected pure white exoskeleton armor directly bounced off the tranquilizer dart shot at Chen Ming. To be on the safe side, Chen Ming immediately modified a filter mask for the exoskeleton armor on his body to prevent Yu Hui from doing things directly in the air. G3, what do you mean? Mr. Chen Ming, please cooperate with my work. Your mother. Chen Ming calmly spit out a swear word. Before the robot surrounded him, he turned around and aimed the portable micromining laser he had just modified on his left arm at the closed research area gate. 2 high-intensity laser beams passed over the gate and quickly broke it open. Chen Ming has not only been studying the spacecraft shield during this period. He knows very well where his weakest point is now, and it is not a bad thing to enhance his combat power in his spare time. Chen Ming rushed out of the research area and immediately activated the jetpack on his back that had just been modified, aiming it at the direction of the entire Institute's gate. However, Chen Ming had just jumped up to empty. An electromagnetic pulse swept across his body. The exoskeleton system was instantly paralyzed, and Chen Ming fell directly from midair. Fortunately, Chen Ming modified the buffer system well during the modification, so he was not injured in this fall. Instead, he took the opportunity to roll on the ground to repair the exoskeleton again. He did not hesitate at all and continued to rush outside the institute. At this time, in addition to getting out, Chen Ming was still thinking about a question in his mind. Why did the afterglow suddenly burst out? And there was no sign at all. No, there was actually a sign. Chen Ming looked at the space again through the iron ore. There was still a large-scale battle going on there. It was the 14th Legion that arrived in advance that stimulated Yuhui, forcing them to activate the psychic equipment before it reached its limit. Chen Ming no longer needed to think about this. Anyone who knew that Chen Ming had previously asked Bai Quan to notify him before the action and the recent performance of the 14th Legion could see the problem. He immediately contacted Gamma Z and instantly sent his current situation through consciousness. At the same time, he said to Gamma Z, who currently had the ability to rescue him, "Activate the emergency plan, give up hiding when necessary, and give me the highest priority." Chen Ming didn't need to worry about Gamma Z. It would naturally do what it should do. After contacting Gamma Z, Chen Ming contacted the 14th Legion. However, he didn't have so much time to use now, so he directly set up a recording that would be automatically sent after the connection. Bai Quan, if you can't rescue in the first time, let the refraction-class Yuhui cruiser that jumped in from behind go. There is a special mark on the cruiser's body. After doing all this, Chen Ming suddenly froze and repaired his exoskeleton armor again, repairing the damage caused by the electromagnetic pulse equipment that was still in operation. At this moment, there was a sudden explosion outside the institute and the sound of glass breaking. This was the iron ore controlled by Chen Ming that directly smashed the dome. The next moment, the iron ore directly blasted open the door of the institute, landed not far from the door. After the iron ore stabilized, Chen Ming immediately activated the positioning signal agreed with Bai Quan on it. At the same time, a string of Morse code was added to the positioning signal, the content of which was the same as what Chen Ming had just communicated. Then he turned around and raised his right arm, blocking it in front of him. The metal liquid flowed down from the iron ore outside and wrapped around his arm. These metal liquids gradually formed a thick layer of arm armor. The armor on the arm armor gradually began to expand to form a small shield. And the small shield continued to expand, forming a large shield that completely protected Chen Ming. This is not over yet. The metal liquid flowing down from the iron ore is still expanding until it completely covers the channel and condenses into a solid white cloud steel wall, completely separate Chen Ming from the robot on the other side. This should be able to delay for a while. Chen Ming quickly dismantled the arm armor on his arm that had been transformed into a wall. In the struggle against the electromagnetic pulse that constantly destroyed the exoskeleton armor power system, he walked towards the spacecraft outside. In this process, Chen Ming noticed that no one had connected the communication from the 14th Legion. It is unknown whether the positioning signal of the iron ore has been received by the 14th Legion in space. Chen Ming now felt that something was wrong. Bai Quan didn't look like a liar, but Chen Ming had clearly agreed with him to remind him before they took action. But now, not only was there a reminder, but the rescuers had arrived at his current galaxy, and there was not even a communication. This situation is not weird. It can only be said to be completely incomprehensible. And if Chen Ming guessed correctly, there should be some actions in the place where he had been before. Gamma A. No, Gamma A has been running around with Hui Yao during this period and can't provide Chen Ming with information about that galaxy. And Gamma B is also in other places and has no chance to get relevant information. Only those afterglows controlled by Chen Ming who wandered from other star fields can give Chen Ming information here. But if they are not damaged or encounter any accidents, they will not contact Chen Ming on their own initiative. Only when he looks over now can he see the battle happening in the galaxy through a few afterglows that happen to be in the inner space of the galaxy. At this time, a battleship with the logo of Cinda Company was destroying the fleet of Yuhui in the galaxy with a completely crushing attitude. The design of this battleship is not like an ordinary spaceship, because it has a huge slot that looks like something can be installed in a long strip from the bow to the middle and rear of the hull. However, there is no weapon installed in this huge slot now, and it looks empty. On the contrary, the two main weapons on the port side, which seem to be specially designed, are the main output means of this battleship. In other words, it only has two main weapons on the port side as the main output means. Although this battleship has a symmetrical design, the battle method of the ship itself is like the cannon sailing ship in the ancient naval battle, relying on the side guns for output. And the firepower is completely concentrated on one side. This unique design allows this battleship with a narrow front to achieve firepower comparable to that of a larger battleship, while ensuring the maneuverability as a light battleship. The main weapon, which is the main output means of this battleship, does not seem to have any fancy features. There are only turrets wrapped in solid armor and two thick gun barrels extending from the turrets. The two gun barrels fire in an alternating manner. Every time a shot is fired, a deep purple sphere like a hyperspace environment will fly towards the Yuhui fleet with a purple electric cloud. Every deep purple lightning energy shell fired will destroy a cruiser that attempts to resist the battleship. The Yuhui fleet has completely lost its ability to resist at this time and fled in all directions. But this battleship has a large number of tails, and even some engine ducts installed outside the armor, and a large number of auxiliary thrusters on the flanks of the ship provide it with terrifying maneuverability. Even if a cruiser wants to retreat, it will be caught up and destroyed by this battleship. Chen Ming, who watched this scene, is more and more eager to have his own fleet and a battleship of his own. The crushing of high-level spacecraft over low-level spacecraft has already begun to show signs from destroyers to cruisers, and it has been exaggerated to such an extent in the stage from cruisers to main forces. Without main battleships, no matter how many fleets there are and how powerful they look, they are not worth mentioning in front of this real power. Now, I don't know if the previous promise to return the glory of this galaxy will go wrong in this battle. But Chen Ming has no time to worry about others now, and his own situation is not very good. Although the gate of the research institute in front is only a few dozen meters away, every step he takes towards the spacecraft is difficult. The electromagnetic pulse equipment that is constantly activated constantly interferes with Chen Ming's movements and restricts his movement. The passage he just blocked with the wall has already shown signs of being damaged at this time, and it will be broken through soon. After thinking for a moment, Chen Ming simply transformed his arm armor again and formed a wall again with excessive transformation. Then he immediately dismantled the exoskeleton on his body, leaving only the most basic protective clothing, and ran out in a light posture. At the same time, he maximized the use of time and contacted the factory director during this time. At this time, Chen Ming didn't care whether he would be monitored. He couldn't contact the 14th Corps now, so he could only confirm what the 14th Corps was doing through the company. Whether Bai Quan had taken his previous instructions and promises to heart could only be answered by others. The factory director was connected on the line. After listening to Chen Ming's quick explanation of the situation, he said in an extremely unexpected tone, "The rescue has begun? I will ask for you right away. Oh, and the ship you saw should be the Conqueror-class battlecruiser designed by our company." Just as Chen Ming was about to respond, his brain suddenly hurt, and he stumbled and half-knelt on the ground. It wasn't Chen Ming's brain that was out of sorts, but the Despair Spirit Stone that had been installed in the Mind Pulse amplifier in the experimental area, which played a role for G3 at this time. "I'm a little busy here, Director. I'll talk to you later." Chen Ming endured the pain and said to the director, concentrating his attention. He used his own mental power to resist the despair brought by the Despair Stone, which seemed to be deep in his heart, and the needle-like pain caused by the stimulation of despair in the brain. Chen Ming had been trained by the Whispering and Lying Spirit Stones for a long time. Even if the Despair Stone played a powerful role in the Mind Pulse amplifier, for Chen Ming now, It was nothing to survive the first wave. Chen Ming adjusted his breathing, stood up again, and continued to move forward. He rushed to the door. However, before he could walk out, a piece of land outside the institute that was usually full of plants suddenly fell over, revealing the deep underground space below. Then, a giant mechanical body loaded with a large number of armed equipment suddenly crawled out. It instantly pounced on the iron ore, which was hovering on the surface not far in front of Chen Ming. Chen Ming reacted quickly and immediately aimed the ion cannon on the iron ore at the giant mechanical body, instantly tearing apart a large amount of the mechanical body's external armor. But this did not stop its movement. It pounced on the iron ore with a sharp tearing sound from the metal parts on its body. The huge force of the over-operating mechanical structure directly overturned the iron ore to the ground. At the same time, a large number of robots that Chen Ming had never seen before suddenly appeared in all directions outside the institute at the same time, completely surrounding him. Chen Ming realized that the situation was not good, and he modified his protective suit again with a set of exoskeleton armor that was heavier and more powerful than before to protect himself. At the same time, he was desperately repairing the iron ore, and in the process of the giant mechanical body destroying the iron ore, he also almost destroyed the mechanical body. At the moment when the giant mechanical body was completely destroyed, a violent electric light suddenly flashed at its core. A continuous and extremely strong electromagnetic pulse spread in it. Not only was the iron ore instantly paralyzed, but even Chen Ming could not move. It would take time to repair the iron ore and the exoskeleton armor, and the robots that had just appeared were already in sight. In addition, the other 3 areas where plants were usually planted were also turned over, and 3 brand new giant mechanical bodies crawled out from the space below, staring at them. The iron ore had a hard time dealing with one when it needed to rescue Chen Ming, and there was absolutely no chance of winning with 3. Chen Ming knew that he was now powerless to resist. The only remaining possibility of escape, or the possibility of escape that Chen Ming had been counting on, was only on Gamma Z. Chen Ming had given up struggling in action and was still controlled by the robot. However, he had contacted Gamma Z through his consciousness and asked about the rescue that had not arrived for so long. What's going on? In order to pursue efficiency, Gamma Z directly showed Chen Ming a paragraph of text. Chen Ming quickly browsed through it and summarized the specific situation in his mind. Just when Gamma Z received Chen Ming's message, Yuhui also posted a public message for help on their communication platform. So the Alpha Yuhui controlled by Chen Ming could jump there openly for normal reasons. But the landing point of the jump was deviated due to the high-energy reaction in the galaxy. It failed to jump directly to Chen Ming's location, but jumped to the edge of the galaxy. When the Alpha-class Yuhui tried to enter the interior of the galaxy, it was attacked by the 14th Legion and is still being hunted down. Chen Ming frowned and immediately looked at the refraction class controlled by the Alpha-class Yuhui. It is now in the galaxy where Chen Ming is. But it is already shaky at this time, and 2 cruisers from the 14th Legion are chasing it. Force the refraction out of the defense line formed by the Yuhui fleet and into the corner of the battlefield. Not far away, there were fleets of more than 10,000 ships led by 7 main battleships. A fierce conflict broke out next to the planet where Chen Ming was. Gamma Z interrupted at this time. In a battle of this scale, there is no possibility for ships below the cruiser level to approach. The only one who can play a rescue role is the refraction, but it is in a bad situation now. Chen Ming knew the situation was urgent without Gamma Z's reminder, and immediately connected the refraction directly to the spacecraft controlled by him, instead of relying on the indirect control of the Yuhui individual. After experiencing a rapid consumption of mental power, Chen Ming successfully controlled the refraction-class unmanned cruiser himself. During this period of time, his mental power has increased to the point where he can control the cruiser. After controlling the refraction, Chen Ming risked being exposed in advance and repaired the ship in front of the 2 cruisers of the 14th Legion. The entire refraction was restored in the blink of an eye. But the 2 cruisers of the 14th Legion still continued to attack the refraction, ignoring the situation just now. The communication request sent by the refraction to them did not receive any response. The message of Chen Ming's confirmation of identity and the communication request sent to the two offensive-class ships and one Legion-class ships of the 14th Legion farther away were like a drop in the ocean, without any movement. Maybe they blocked the signal. Maybe they didn't care at all. Chen Ming controlled the refraction to pull back with an expressionless face, and after a burst attack caused by the repairability forced them back, he took the initiative to withdraw from the battle with them. In addition to repairing the exterior of the spacecraft, Chen Ming had also repaired the jump engine and accelerated the cooling of the jump system. He wanted to start the jump engine immediately and prepare to jump directly and accurately in front of him. However, the jump engine of the refraction had just started. The two cruisers of the 14th Corps just now immediately pressed forward and blocked the refraction. However, the next moment, they suddenly accelerated and pulled away from the flank, with no intention of continuing to fight with the refraction. But behind them, a red energy bomb with a length of more than 300 meters, like a shuttle, suddenly flew out from the main battlefield and flew towards the refraction. This was the last scene Chen Ming saw from the refraction. If Chen Ming remembered correctly, this was an offensive-class heavy battleship that left a strong and colorful chapter in the history of human development. Its main weapon was an energy bomb fired by a thermal pulse laser. The next moment, the signal of the refraction was disconnected. Chen Ming also lost control of the Alpha-class Yuhui. Not only Chen Ming, but even the Alpha-class Yuhui that controlled the refraction also did not respond in time, and there was no chance to repair it. Chen Ming never expected that his hope of escape would be cut off by the 14th Corps and his own people in the end. He had no anger, no resentment, and no emotional fluctuations at this time. This was his problem. He shouldn't have held on to that possibility and let refraction try to contact the people of the 14th Legion, so that he now lost the chance to escape. In matters of life and death, other people are never worthy of trust. But for Chen Ming, there is still a chance to survive. As long as he is alive, there is still hope for everything. Chen Ming withdrew his plan to watch the battle seen through the scattered afterglow individuals in the galaxy that he controlled. Put all his energy on himself. He was controlled by the robot and taken to the room where the psychic equipment was installed. The door of the room was closed again. Chen Ming's exoskeleton armor was disassembled, and the protective suit was forcibly taken off. He was tied to this equipment like an operating table with several restraints. At this time, various mental power-enhancing equipment in several surrounding rooms was also turned on together. Although Chen Ming's body could not move, his mental power was extremely active, and the active mental power brought a rising sense of danger. The psychic equipment was running. Chen Ming saw a green and black cylindrical object with a slight curvature, like some kind of medicine bottle, being lifted by a mechanical arm of the operating table-like device and pressed against his eye socket. The eyes that were pressed saw that in this cylindrical object, there was a white and tender thing with many forks, like a nerve, gradually extending from the deepest part. It looked like a newly sprouted leaf branch, and also like a white and tender fat worm. Chen Ming's mind seemed to have an alarm, and the feeling of extreme danger completely enveloped him. But he couldn't get off the operating table at all. Only the instinct of strong desire for hope of survival in his heart guided him to do what he should do at this time. The twisted pattern on the nonsense stone that Chen Ming had been carrying on his body lit up with a brightness it had never had before. The nonsense of countless crazy people resounded in Chen Ming's ears and in Chen Ming's brain. Chen Ming immediately suppressed the nonsense he was used to. But the white and tender fat nerve in front of him had curled up. It seemed to be affected by the liar stone. The sense of danger in the brain gradually weakened. But when it dropped to a certain point, the part of this white and tender nerve connected to the end of the medicine bottle suddenly broke. The remaining nerve directly drilled into Chen Ming's eye socket. Chen Ming fell into a coma instantly. But at the moment before the coma, he realized that the sense of danger did not continue to grow, but remained at a stable level. While Chen Ming and Yu Hui's robots were fighting, the factory director once again hurriedly contacted the chairman, but this time it was not the chairman who answered the call, but his secretary. "Mr. Liu, the chairman is in a meeting now. If you have anything to say, you can tell me." The factory director knew that the chairman's secretary also knew quite a few, so he asked directly, "Has the rescue operation of the 14th Corps begun?" Just as the secretary was about to answer, the factory director heard the chairman's voice coming from the other side. "Xiao Lu, the operation of the 14th Corps has already begun. You called this time because I said I would inform you of this matter before, right?" The chairman knew what the factory director meant, so the factory director did not continue to speak, waiting for the chairman to explain to him. "I did forget about this matter. I apologize to you first, but I just had something more important to deal with." The factory director also knew that it was meaningless to bring it up again after it had happened, so he followed the chairman's words and asked, "What's the matter?" "The company just learned about the situation at the 14th Corps. There is bad news. There is a problem within them. The original commander Bai Quan is nowhere to be found. They said that Bai Quan was seriously injured and unconscious due to an accident while performing his duties, and the entire task of rescuing Chen Ming was handed over to another person." The factory director frowned and asked, "What is this?" "I also want to know what this is, so as soon as I know this situation, I have to prepare materials for an emergency meeting to discuss the impact of this matter on the company. I am a little too busy with other things now. To be honest, this is no different from a honey trap. If Bai Quan turns back and dies, then all the agreements we have made with the 14th Corps that are not in written documents may be invalidated by them." "Sky Steel?" "Yes, the Galaxy Mining Rights Certificate has always been in our hands, and Sky Steel can be said to have always been ours in public. It's just that the military used dishonorable means to blockade the galaxy before, so that's why it happened. So now if the 14th Legion wants to, they can do it. The company has been cheated, but we still can't take the initiative to violate the previous agreement. Otherwise, the truth is not on our side. It's definitely not a good thing for us to have a conflict with the 14th Legion now. We can only wait until the matter is over and listen to their explanation and see their movements." The factory manager couldn't help asking, "The company is still not running away after this?" "The Conqueror class we sent out," the captain said, that although the person who took over Baichuan's mission was not as good as Bai Quan, he seemed to have a good subordinate who could continue to complete the mission. Then those of us sitting in the rear must follow his ideas on the front line. And we only undertook a simple task of attracting attention before. As long as we attract Yu Hui's main battleship, the rest will be none of our business. We just need to run away. Well, let's do this for now. I just came out to get something. The meeting is not over yet, and I don't have time to talk to you anymore." The chairman's voice disappeared on the other end of the communication again. The secretary also hung up the communication after confirming with the factory director that there was nothing else to ask. And the factory director said to another terminal in his hand that was connected to Chen Ming, "Xiao Ming, I have some news here. There is a problem inside the 14th Corps." He quickly explained to the terminal the news he had just heard from the chairman, but after he finished speaking, he did not get any response. "Xiao Ming? Xiao Ming?" The factory manager suddenly felt that the situation was not good, but he had no way to help Chen Ming at this time. He could only sigh and sit behind his desk waiting anxiously, just as the factory manager was worried about Chen Ming's safety. In the outer space of Chen Ming's planet, the battle between Yu Hui and the Joint Fleet has entered a white-hot stage. At least thousands of warships of both sides have sunk in space, and even the loss of cruisers has exceeded 100, and the loss of destroyers and escorts is countless. Even because of the scale of the battlefield, the frigates are not available at all, so that the destroyers have lost the most warships so far. However, no matter how many destroyers are lost, no Yu Hui cares. All the people involved in this battle and Yu Hui's attention are at the core of the entire battlefield. That is, the location of the 7 battleships. Yu Hui has 3 battleships here, of the same model, all of which are the most common radiation-class unmanned battleships on Yu Hui and human battlefields. The 14th Corps has 1 exemplar-class battleship from Tachyon Technology. The remaining 3 ships are 2 offensive-class heavy battleships built by the 14th Corps itself, and a Corps-class aviation battleship that combines the functions of a battleship and an aircraft carrier. The 2 offensive-class ships were located in the center of the entire battle line and deployed 2 huge red shields, blocking the afterglow like 2 flaming mountains. The core-class aircraft battleships were located at the rear of the battle line. They were behind the other battleships and all the ships in the entire fleet. If an aircraft carrier is under the protection of the fleet, it is not a problem to be at the rear of the fleet. However, the core-class aircraft carriers are doing something very strange now. That is, the direction in which its shields are deployed is also the rear. And that's not all. At this time, the shield resonance frequency of several battleships of the 14th Corps is surprisingly consistent with the shield resonance frequency of all ships in the entire fleet. So much so that now, there is even a layer of special shields that are visible to the naked eye, like a phantom, covering the shields of all ships below the battleship level, protecting the spacecraft inside. Although the phantom shield covers all directions around the spacecraft like a sphere, but if you look closely, you will find that the phantom shield protects the spacecraft on the shield sphere. The back hemisphere is pure red, the same as the Legion-level shield. But in the front hemisphere, in addition to maintaining the same fiery red as the offensive level, it is also flashing some blue ripples like the radiation-level blue shield. It's as if this phantom shield covering the entire fleet is maintained by several battleships. And this is exactly the case. The reason for this situation lies in the battleship itself. When a battleship-level ship joins a battlefield, the battle mode of the entire battlefield will inevitably change. The main weapons of the battleship are devastating to any spaceship below the battleship. Even if it is a cruiser, even if it is the special ruler-class heavy cruiser of the 14th Legion that directly forced the original Star Zone military to surrender with a single ship, the outcome is the same in front of the main weapons of any battleship. However, although the main weapons of the battleships have terrifying destructive power, the hull and weapons of the battleships are still of normal structure. This means that as long as the attack power is sufficient, low-level ships can also pose a threat to them. The large weapons of the cruisers are almost the minimum weapons that can cause damage to the battleships. Therefore, in a battle involving battleship-level ships, it is not only the battleships themselves that count, but also the fleet following the battleships. Protect these low-level ships so that they can survive in the battle, and rely on their weapons that can threaten the battleships to help the battleships of their own side to put additional pressure on the battleships of the opposite side. The combined shield generated by the resonance of the battleship-level shield and the shield of the ordinary ship at a specific resonant frequency is the best way of protection. Under normal circumstances, the combined shield will always remain as a phantom. Only when the protected ship is triggered by an attack above a certain energy level, that is, when it is attacked by the main weapons, will it directly condense and bear the attack. It will not block attacks below a certain energy level. The purpose of this design is also very simple. After all, the combined shield itself is actually the main battleship helping other ships to bear the damage of the enemy's main battleship. So if it is really attacked by the attack of low-level ships, then this shield itself has no meaning. Instead, it is more convenient for the enemy, allowing more enemies to attack the shield of their own main battleship. The shield of the Legion is now aimed at the rear, providing protection from the rear to all ships on the entire front. The main reason is to protect against the attack of Yu Hui's main battleship. As for why we still have to guard against the back when the front line has been opened, there are two reasons. One is that Yu Hui's subsequent support may sneak attack from the back. The other is that Yu Hui's flash engine exists even on the main battleship. The existence of the flash engine forces the joint fleet to take precautions. At this time, in the general command room of the Legion level, Tang Shi, the temporary fleet commander who replaced Bai Quan, is here. Tang Shi looked to be in his 30s or even 40s. He was looking at the data-heavy panel in front of him and listening to the reports that kept ringing in his ears. His hands were clicking on the control panel with some stiff movements while issuing instructions. There were beads of sweat on his forehead, and he looked extremely nervous. Just then, the side door of the command room opened, and his deputy Zhang Feng returned to the command room. Tang Shi seemed to have seen a savior, and his nervousness was instantly relieved. Zhang Feng came to his side naturally to help analyze intelligence and assist in making decisions, so that the somewhat chaotic battlefield situation could be sorted out again. But this was only on the surface. In fact, all the major decisions were actually made by Zhang Feng as his deputy. Although Tang Shi and Zhang Feng are nominally the commander and deputy, they actually do the opposite. The reason is very simple. Zhang Feng was arranged to this position. So although he is doing his job well now, his heart is full of negative thoughts. He has the ability to command an entire joint fleet, but now he can only be a deputy, a so-called think tank. Cleaning up the ass of a man who became a major general by relying on connections, so he cannot convince the public. But there is no better candidate who can convince the public. Even in accordance with the requirements of the superiors, in the current situation, it is necessary to find opportunities to cultivate his on-the-spot responsibility and exercise his command skills. And although there are objections within the Legion, these objections were quickly suppressed, and those who have opinions never raised any objections again. This is also the reason why Zhang Feng is here now, and continues to accompany the prince to study honestly. Zhang Feng knows that although he and the people above Tang Shi cannot directly reach into the 14th Legion, it is not difficult to reach into a small unit separated from the 14th Legion, especially since this unit has not yet established itself and even needs to rely on other forces to form a joint fleet. It is even easier to intervene. So much so that Zhang Feng now even doubts whether the accident Bai Quan encountered was premeditated. Otherwise, under normal circumstances, the 14th Corps would not be able to conceal this news so efficiently and completely suppress all opposition voices. However, even if he only knew about this matter, it would pose a considerable threat to his life's safety. So Zhang Feng only guessed, and kept the content of the guess in his heart, and did not mention it to anyone. At the same time, he continued to help this major general who had no actual ability and could only rely on years of accumulated experience and the forces behind him to barely get a qualification. Zhang Feng quickly arranged the emergency situation on the front line and saw that the war was not as urgent as before. He finally had time to say something else to Tang Shi, what the people above had just told him. There was a space between the commander-in-chief and other people present in the general command room. Therefore, Zhang Feng was not worried that what he said later would be exposed, and he directly said to Tang Shi, "Commander-in-Chief Tang, I need to tell you about our subsequent plans." Arrangements? Isn't it to rescue Chen Ming? No, our goal is not to rescue Chen Ming, because his survival is of no benefit to us, let alone the people above us. It is his existence that caused us to lose the share of sky steel that should have belonged to us. There is also this matter? Zhang Feng nodded and continued to explain. So the matter of saving Chen Ming is just a pretense, and it must not be saved for real. And now the time is almost up. Chen Ming is too late and impossible to save. Why do you say that? Zhang Feng patiently explained. Because our original plan was to raid the planet in front, and before Yu Hui reacted, we sent the army troops to rescue according to Chen Ming's coordinates. But now, the battlefield has entered the stage of head-on confrontation. It is definitely impossible for us to break through in a short time, and the army landing troops cannot bypass such a front line and land directly. This gives Yu Hui time to take action against Chen Ming. Whether it is a transfer or something else, Yu Hui will never give us another chance to save him. So far, the mission to rescue Chen Ming has failed. We only have one goal now, to attract Yu Hui's attention, continue to delay time to find opportunities, prepare for jumps, and Rekleka. This is the key. This is the achievement. Zhang Feng hesitated for a moment, and still said the last sentence, your achievement. Tang Shi said with some hesitation on his face, but I saw the coordinate signal sent by Chen Ming in the colony. He should not have been transferred yet. And I'm not sure if I can command well. To be honest, I don't want to. Zhang Feng suddenly reached out and patted his shoulder to interrupt him, and said with a serious expression and solemn demeanor, "You are now under the command of a critical moment, and many people are looking forward to your achievement. And I will help you. Just do it." Okay. Tang Shi reluctantly responded, and Zhang Feng took over the command of the fleet. He began to command the entire joint fleet in the commander's communication channel as a nominal deputy. The captains of several battleships on the battlefield were all in the communication channel at this time. They all acquiesced to Zhang Feng replacing Tang Shi's command. Or, they acquiesced to this matter because of Tang Shi's existence. The captains of several ships were of high status and knew that the whole process of the whole incident was quite wrong. But since Bai Quan was clearly arranged, They dared not do anything extra except to notify the Legion immediately and wait for the Legion to respond. As for the captain of the exemplary-class battleship sent by Speed Technology, he did not have any problems in this regard. After all, if he died here, the 14th Legion would have to give an explanation to Speed Technology. And the 14th Legion would definitely go to Tang Shi, who joined the 14th Legion through normal channels, but gradually rose to prominence through special means outside. But for him, since it has come to this last moment, if he gives up, it would be equivalent to all the previous investment going down the drain. The sunk cost of launching the main battleship is not a small amount. And although the major general who took over the Baikwon mission was a rubbish, his deputy was different. Although he was unknown, his command ability made the representatives of all forces in the joint meeting barely accept it in a short period of time, and saw the hope of completing the mission. Otherwise, no matter how much the investment was lost, it would not be as much as the loss of a main battleship, and they would have run away long ago. Of course, this mission refers to the mission against Kleka, not Chen Ming. Since the previous joint meeting, the various forces have already distributed the benefits of the mission. Chen Ming's affiliation has also been decided at the beginning and assigned to the 14th Corps. So now that there is a split within the 14th Corps, and the part that has a grudge against Chen Ming also controls this part of the 14th Corps fleet. Except for the government that did not actually participate in the battle, which may still have ideas about Chen Ming, other forces will not try to find Chen Ming for the sake of the already determined interests. Even if there are, they will think that Chen Ming will eventually be taken away by the 14th Corps, so why waste energy to care? So for Zhang Feng, the next thing the joint fleet has to do is simple, that is, disguise, pretending to retreat. Chen Ming will naturally be pitted to death. Yu Hui will also most likely relax some of his vigilance, and they can also find an opportunity to directly jump to the galaxy where the replica of the Kleka supercomputer is located next to him. Zhang Feng quickly took control of the battle situation under command, and he was able to completely withdraw and look for opportunities to jump. He was determined to get the Kleka simulator. Just as the front was further stretched, suddenly, Zhang Feng noticed that the space was distorted before the jump engine arrived behind their front line. He immediately ordered the fleet to be on alert. Soon, another 10,000-meter class afterglow battleship, the Radiation class, appeared behind them. Although there are countless large, heavy, and small weapons on the ship, the most dangerous on the Radiation class are always the two main weapons. Micro-Sievert class light radiation cannon. This is the main weapon designed for each battleship when it is designed, and it is suitable for the ship. The name, Micro-Sievert, is the smallest unit of measurement for radiation value. When this radiation class appeared behind the combined fleet, the two Micro-Sievert class light radiation cannons had already opened fire. Two long, dark purple rays close to purple-black crossed horizontally from the edge of the battle line and hit countless battleships of the combined fleet on the battle line. Although it cannot be seen by the naked eye, it can be found through sensors. The purple beam visible to the naked eye on the light radiation line is only a part of this light radiation cannon. The main energy of the light radiation line it emits is all concentrated on ultraviolet radiation. The power brought by these energies hidden from the naked eye is far greater than it seems. And although these two light radiation lines look very slender, their actual diameter has exceeded the tachyon sphere. A large number of ships below the battleship level were hit, giving the Legion-level huge shield pressure that maintained the rear-linked shield, so that its radiation energy system was almost close to the upper limit. However, Zhang Feng was not worried at all at this time, because the situation of this radiation-level ship that arrived was also very bad. As long as you think a little, you can understand that their 4 battleships do not need to move at all, and there is no need to distract yourself to deal with it, because they also have a large number of cruisers with linked shields activated, which can activate a large number of large weapons on board. At the same time, they also have a large number of fighters designed purely for combat carried by the Legion that is already taking care of the buttocks behind them. The fighters that a battleship-class carrier can carry are not like the ones that Storm and Cowherd can only carry a few meters or more than 10 meters long. The fighters it can carry can at least compete with cruisers. Moreover, in fact, most of these fighters designed purely for combat often have stronger combat power than cruisers. Therefore, This radiation-class ship, without a ship to accompany, it will definitely not have time to carry out the second round of output. Even if it wants to start the flash engine to escape, they will never give it this opportunity, not to mention that the flash engine cannot be used at will without restrictions. No matter how you look at it, the combined fleet can easily control it and create an advantageous game in a local area. So here, Zhang Feng simply followed the instructions above and handed over this decision that only required simple brain analysis to make the optimal solution and was not very dangerous to Tang Shi to deal with. Zhang Feng asked Tang Shi directly, "What should we do here?" Originally just watching Tang Shi from the side, he suddenly panicked. Like a candidate who did not study well and found that he could not understand the test paper at all during the exam. And when he looked up, he suddenly found that the exam time was about to end. Such tension made his brain a little confused for a while. Zhang Feng saw his situation and could only helplessly and patiently say, "Calm down, think slowly, you make the decision, you are the commander now." For a while, cold sweat flowed down Tang Shi's forehead again. He had never commanded such a battle, and even the simplest things seemed extremely difficult to him now. Anxiety and irritability continued to squeeze his few clear-minded rationality. Finally, he issued such an order: Legion-level emergency radiation discharge. Prevent overload. Zhang Feng's pupils shrank suddenly, and he shouted quickly, "Wait!" But the Legion is their vehicle, and the order was conveyed at the first time. The Legion level started the emergency radiation discharge, and all the equipment that needed to consume radiation energy was locked. The radiation energy that had been accumulated due to the attack of the radiation level began to be completely discharged and could not be stopped. At this moment, a radiation level ship that dared not move in front of the battle line due to the pressure of the number of main battleships instantly started the flash engine and went around to their rear. The Legion level had entered the emergency radiation discharge state at this time, and the rear was wide open. The command communication channel, especially the highest level command communication channel, fell into silence. Only the captain of the speed technology, with a livid face, left 2 words, "Idiot." The captain of the speed technology had known Zhang Feng, who was currently the commander in a practical sense, before, and he knew that Zhang Feng's ability was not enough to make such a stupid operation. The only explanation was that the nominal commander gave the order himself. The flashing radiation-class ship did not hesitate at all and also activated the 2 microsievert-class light radiation cannons. The 2 beams swept across the entire battle line again, and the flames of a series of continuous explosions that almost spanned the human battle line could be seen clearly even on the planet behind Yuhui. A full third of the ships of the joint fleet disappeared in space because of this stupid operation. The battle at the battleship level currently depends on 2 places to decide the outcome. One is whether the battleship can withstand it, and the other is whether the small ships brought by the 2 sides can suppress the opponent and not give the opponent's small ships the opportunity to help the battleship attack its own battleship. If the battleship cannot withstand it, the remaining small ships will be scum in the eyes of the enemy's battleship. If the small ship is suppressed by the opponent, it is equivalent to allowing the opponent to focus on its own battleship. No matter how powerful the ship is, if it is focused on, it will be difficult to escape the end of the accident. And here in the joint fleet, there is a big problem on the small ship at this time. This wave of losses cannot be said to be a serious injury, but it can only be said to be a complete failure. The situation of the war has inevitably begun to tilt towards Yuhui. The combined fleet itself invaded Yuhui's territory. There are only so many of them in total, and the loss of one ship is a loss. But Yuhui is different. Their hometown is here, with a steady stream of support. Even a 1-to-2 exchange of casualties is a loss, not to mention a unilateral loss of nearly 1/3. So Zhang Feng has been planning the fleet to retreat and prepare for more substantial benefits later. As a result, he never expected that Tang Shi would make such a move that can be said to be completely brainless, exposing the most vulnerable part of his own side to the enemy. Zhang Feng's gradually livid face and Tang Shi's gradually calm brain after making the decision made Tang Shi realize what a stupid decision he had just made. Tang Shi looked at the fleet and environment inside the galaxy on the sensor with sweat on his forehead, and knew that the combined fleet was doomed to fail. although the subsequent plan to raid Kleka still has the possibility of going forward. However, if there is a mistake, at least half of the ships will be lost, including the main battleship. They can't do anything else, so they can only leave. Zhang Feng gradually calmed down. He ignored Tang Shi next to him and calmly organized the fleet in the command channel to adjust the formation. While resisting the frontal pressure from Yu Hui, he ate the radiation class that just came through the flash engine. But the other radiation class that arrived by jump successfully escaped from the encirclement of the joint fleet by relying on the jump engine. With the Yu Hui joining the front battlefield, the combined fleet could no longer bear the pressure from the ordinary ships of the Yu Hui. Zhang Feng could only say in the command channel, "Prepare to retreat." However, he had one last thing to do before leaving the galaxy. Zhang Feng checked the coordinate signal that Chen Ming's signal generator had been sending on the control panel. Tang Shi, who had no psychological pressure, immediately realized what he was going to do and said, "This is the last resort?" Zhang Feng interrupted him directly and said in a low voice as if he wanted to eat someone, "Isn't this the last resort? Don't forget our original purpose." He didn't pay attention to Tang Shi and continued to do what he was going to do. Soon, in the combined fleet, a ruler that was just brushed by the beam of the micro-sievert-class light radiation cannon and was lucky enough to have only part of the hull damaged suddenly stopped following the fleet to retreat, and instead suddenly started the jump engine at a dangerous distance. Yu Hui wanted to stop this sudden strange operation, but was immediately blocked by other warships of the joint fleet that acted according to Zhang Feng's orders. In the end, the ruler disappeared in the fleet. The destination of the ruler's jump was not somewhere else, but behind Yu Hui's front line, just like the two radiation-class ships just now. The ruler class activated the only 3 large-scale weapons Gauss cannons on its hull that could achieve long-range precision attacks at the moment the jump ended. After aiming at the coordinates sent by the positioning signal on the planet, the ruler opened fire. It was directly destroyed by Yu Hui's fleet after only 1 round of firing. But the 3 large-scale live ammunition with exaggerated caliber fired by the Gauss cannon had already flown to this planet without the protection of the atmosphere. The security system installed by Yu Hui on the planet was not able to prepare for the attack launched by the ruler that almost jumped to its face for a suicide attack. The 3 Gauss shells flew accurately to the research institute that was still sending coordinates to the outside world. 3 Gauss shells had reached the sky above the institute in the blink of an eye. If there were no targeted measures, then these 3 Gauss shells, which were almost unaffected by resistance and even assisted by gravity acceleration, would definitely destroy the institute completely. At this time, Yu Hui did not seem to have enough countermeasures. The only ones that could play a role were the 3 giant mechanical bodies that had just completed their mission and were ready to go into hibernation. But the giant mechanical bodies themselves were extremely heavy, and even if they could jump up, they could only jump a few meters at most, and basically could only move near the ground. It was impossible to block the Gauss cannon shells with the body. Moreover, Gauss cannon shells rarely use magnetic materials. So even if the giant mechanical bodies now use electromagnetic pulses to generate high-intensity magnetic forces for traction, it is basically unlikely to work. Even if the shells fired by the rulers were really made of magnetic materials, the giant mechanical bodies would basically not have time to pull the shells apart, and at most they would slightly deflect their direction before the shells landed. But the final speed of the Gauss cannon shells and the terrifying power brought by such speed, whether they hit the institute head-on or hit somewhere next to the institute, actually made no difference. Anyway, the result is the same. And at this time, Yu Hui had no other means of protection. Since they did not stop the ruler at the beginning, it seemed destined that the ruler's shells would hit the institute after entering the planet. Danger is coming. Chen Ming, who is still in the experimental area of the institute, seems to be about to become the only victim of the Gauss cannon. However, what Yu Hui, who was paying attention to the 3 shells, did not expect was that the paralyzed iron or next to it suddenly moved on its own. On its main control computer, which was controlled by Chen Ming's psychic power for a long time and was infected by the persistence of psychic power, several commands that needed to be executed appeared for no reason. At the same time, all the equipment on the iron, ore that had just been destroyed by the last electromagnetic pulse self-explosion of a giant mechanical body were self-repairing without Chen Ming's active control. In a blink of an eye, the iron ore was active again. It flew to the sky above the Institute and blocked the Gauss shells. And before the Gauss cannon actually hit, it tried to use the ion pulse of the ship to destroy the Gauss cannon shells. But the Gauss cannon shell is just a solid, high-quality block of iron. It is not easy to destroy such a thing. Even though the ion pulse is pretty good for small weapons, it is still too weak for a large weapons shell. It has no ability to cause actual damage at all, and the impact caused by the energy weapons hit can be said to be close to zero, and it can't hit the high-speed shells at all. The Gauss shell bounced off dozens of energy restraint bombs fired at it with an unstoppable momentum and hit the iron ore that was blocking its way. The shield of the iron ore was shattered instantly. But Chen Ming's previous design and the peculiar situation that the iron ore is still autonomously repairing the spacecraft itself played a role. The shield of the iron ore was not directly broken, but after breaking 8 of the 10 layers of shields with different amplitude frequencies, the Gauss cannon shells were successfully slowed down to a barely acceptable range. Although the iron ore in midair also lost its balance directly and rolled and rotated in the air. The shield of the iron ore was also deformed significantly, and it was possible that the shield system would completely fail at any time. But at least it had taken the opportunity to change the force direction of the shell, so that the first shell turned over the research institute and flew to the open space in the distance. The solid shell splashed a lot of dust when it landed, and even covered the research institute from a considerable distance. In the flying dust, the iron ore readjusted its posture and flew over the research institute again. It didn't even have time to make a complete repair. The second Gauss shell had already arrived here after the first shell. The iron ore blocked it again, and its remaining shield was completely shattered, but the second far Gauss shell still hit the hull of the iron ore with its remaining force. The iron ore had no intention of dodging, and directly relied on the hull to withstand the attack of this large weapon. The once solid Bayun steel now seemed a little fragile in front of the Gauss shell. The shells, which were already buffered by the shield and slightly deflected in direction, still caused nearly a quarter of the spacecraft to be damaged due to the impact. Even a corner of the spacecraft was completely shattered in the collision with the shells. But at least the second shell was successfully deflected and fell in another direction. Chen Ming is still safe now. However, this safety period will not last long. The third, which is the last Gauss cannon shell, is about to arrive. The iron ore can only barely support a fragile shield with only one layer of layers at this time. It is already an exaggerated thing that its shield can be opened again after enduring the attack of the large weapon Gauss cannon. But it continued to block in front of the Gauss shells without hesitation, using itself as a buffer, and blocking the Gauss cannon outside the Institute and in front of Chen Ming even if the ship itself was destroyed. The thin shield was shattered the moment it came into contact with the Gauss shells, and it did not have any effect. The speed of the shells did not decrease at all. The third Gauss shell hit the iron ore head-on after breaking the shield. A frigate was hit head-on by a large weapon without any protection other than armor. The result can be imagined. But what the iron ore wanted to do was successful. Although the Gauss shell did not show any performance when hitting the shield, it was indeed affected and deflected when hitting the hull of the iron ore. In the end, the shell finally hit the working area diagonally opposite the experimental area with less destructive power. The structure of the Institute itself is quite solid. The dome was broken by the iron ore before, and the door was blasted open. Now the Gauss shell hit an area after the power was reduced to a certain extent. In this case, the Institute still remained standing. The damage suffered near the entire Institute was only some industrial equipment, and the iron ore itself. The iron ore was completely destroyed after enduring the frontal attack of the Gauss shells, leaving only the shattered wreckage scattered throughout the research. At this time, Zhang Feng had confirmed that the source of the positioning signal had disappeared, and retreat became the only thing they needed to do now. The entire joint fleet covered each other and jumped away from here. A large number of shipwreckages were left floating in space. The Yuhui fleet organized a smaller fleet to patrol the interior of the galaxy, and arranged more other ships to search in other surrounding galaxies to prevent the joint fleet from taking other actions after the jump. After the ships responsible for the battle left, a large number of Yuhui responsible for logistics began to control various engineering ships to clean up the battlefield. Recover the wreckage of the ship, find the core that has not been destroyed, capture the human captives who escaped through the escape pod, and collect the bodies of the dead humans. The latter two are bargaining chips that can be exchanged with humans later. At this time, G3 just moved his perspective away from the outside of the research institute and moved back to Chen Ming, who was in frequent accidents. Obviously, the sudden break of the nerve just now was not normal. It was Chen Ming who had an unknown effect on the stone after activating it. And after Chen Ming fell into a coma, the iron ore that moved on its own outside also confused G3 at this time. It must submit a complete and clear report on this. Fortunately, it does not need to worry too much now. The other afterglow in space cannot give humans a second chance to attack the surface of the planet when there is already a precedent. The only thing it needs to worry about is that Chen Ming may have stimulated the nerve just now, causing the final result of the use of this device to deviate and eventually lead to his death. So G3 immediately controlled the robot to start a more detailed and comprehensive examination of Chen Ming. It needs to make sure that there is no problem with Chen Ming's body function. At the same time, he also needs to confirm whether Chen Ming has really fainted and whether it is him who controlled the iron or just now. In addition, it has to confirm whether there is anything strange hidden in Chen Ming. To avoid the possibility of accidents in the use of the equipment just now. Soon, G3 confirmed that Chen Ming was in good physical condition, and his brainwaves were consistent with those of a person in a coma. Only the fluctuations in mental power were quite obvious. However, this kind of fluctuation is normal when using psychic equipment. As long as it does not exceed a certain peak value, there will be no problem. And while confirming Chen Ming's physical condition, G3 also confirmed that in addition to the Liar Stone, Chen Ming also had a lower quality spiritual stone. This was actually the most unexpected point for G3, because it had never thought that Chen Ming would carry a high-intensity negative effect spiritual stone with him, and there were two of them. Even one of them did not take any safety measures and was directly carried close to the body, without taking the negative effects into consideration. This also explains why Chen Ming's mental power has improved far beyond expectations during this period. A psychic who carries this thing every day will either go crazy because of the mental pulse, or because of the resistance to the mental pulse, the psychic power will increase significantly. G3 is still quite suspicious that Chen Ming's spiritual stone has a special effect that it is not aware of. Because before this, the detection equipment inside the Institute could not detect the existence of this spiritual stone. The spiritual stone with a weaker effect was placed in a box made of silent alloy and could not be detected. There must be some special reason why this spiritual stone with a stronger effect was not detected even though it was placed in the pocket of clothes. As the responsible individual on Chen Ming's side, G3 must investigate it clearly and give a reasonable report. But all he can do now is to arrange robots to collect the fragments of the iron ore scattered around the Institute. At the same time, keep an eye on the data of Chen Ming's physical indicators to prevent Chen Ming from getting into trouble suddenly. The reason is that Yu Hui has only mastered the way to use this equipment, but not the principle. So when they encountered unexpected situations one after another. For example, the sudden attack by humans forced them to activate the psychic equipment before it reached the optimal level. For example, Chen Ming anticipated their methods in advance and responded, which led to them having to control Chen Ming by force and conduct experiments instead of relying on drugs to make Chen Ming fall into a coma before conducting experiments. For another example, Chen Ming, whose mobility was restricted, still had the ability to use the spirit stone to fight back, which eventually led to an accident in the device startup process. After these things happened, Yu Hui and the others could only wait and hope that the final result would be in their favor. After G3 arranged for the robots of the Institute to start cleaning up the wreckage of the iron ore around the Institute and the ruins of the work area. While paying attention to Chen Ming's situation, he began to write the report he was going to submit. The spiritual awakening nerve extraction device was not activated at the highest point of the spiritual energy fluctuation intensity, and the actual success rate was reduced by 20% to 30%. The artificial ineffective spiritual awakening nerve was stimulated by the false spiritual stone carried by Chen Ming and broke, and failed to maintain normal operation. The broken part completely entered Chen Ming's body and could not be recovered. Before Chen Ming woke up, it was impossible to confirm whether the artificial ineffective spiritual awakening nerve successfully absorbed Chen Ming's spiritual awakening nerve. But the equipment program is still in operation, and the subsequent reaction needs to be observed. G3 finished writing the summary and then began to add more details to this report, and also attached various complex data recorded in the equipment. And when Chen Ming had fallen into a coma just now and his brain waves were completely calm, the iron mine moved on its own, protecting the Institute and Chen Ming. At present, G3 is also collecting the wreckage of the iron mine for investigation, but this is the same as Chen Ming's current situation, and it also takes time for follow-up monitoring. G3 is observing Chen Ming here, and Chen Ming, who was being observed, was having a hazy dream with a vague consciousness at this time. He dreamed of a chaotic steel jungle consisting of mechanical equipment, broken metal, and a large number of spaceship wreckage. He wandered in it like a lost traveler, holding a cup of fairy leaf tea in his hand for no apparent reason. Chen Ming, who had no idea what was going on, drank the tea in the cup in one gulp, gradually quickened his pace, and walked through the steel jungle. After walking for an unknown period of time, Chen Ming found a special open space in the steel jungle. It was about a 0.5 square kilometer open space, about the size of a cruiser. In the center of this open space, there was a small hill made up of various spaceship wreckage. Chen Ming took a closer look and found that all the spaceship wreckage on the wreckage hill were spaceships that he had personally controlled. The relatively flat open space under this wreckage hill was actually the top armor of the refraction-class ship that he had recently controlled. However, as Chen Ming counted all the wreckage, he found that there was one ship missing from the wreckage hill that he had personally controlled, the iron ore. The wreckage of the iron ore did not appear here. Although there are many spaceships that Chen Ming indirectly controlled through the Yuhui individual, they did not appear. But the iron ore was his first ship, so this shouldn't happen, right? Chen Ming approached the mountain of spaceship wreckage with doubts and stood there thinking for a while. But before Chen Ming could figure it out, a person who looked exactly like him suddenly walked out from behind the wreckage mountain. His eyes were full of desire, as if he wanted to replace him. If Chen Ming hadn't just seen from a distance that this thing that looked like a person was transformed from a white, tender, plump, insect-like giant nerve. And the maintenance engineer Chen Ming and the current Chen Ming's memory had already been completely assimilated in the process of the current Chen Ming learning technology through memory. Chen Ming almost thought it was the maintenance engineer Chen Ming who had come back to life. So when facing this monster that looked exactly like him, Chen Ming hesitated for a while and drove the complete iron ore that suddenly appeared in his dream to crush it. Chen Ming didn't know where the iron ore came from, nor how he got on the iron ore. But anyway, he did it. And after he did it, the crushed meat suddenly turned back into the fat nerve. Although it was still crushed, it moved like a living thing. It was broken into the smallest fragments, like some kind of fluid that penetrated the armor of the iron ore and gradually stuck to Chen Ming. At the same time, it began to shrink into a normal-sized nerve along Chen Ming's palm, from the position where he used his ability to transport materials over a long distance and drilled into his body. Chen Ming did not feel pain or danger during this process. This crushed nerve was like a docile dog, no longer looking like it wanted to eat people. When the nerve was completely drilled into Chen Ming's body, the dream suddenly stopped. Chen Ming opened his eyes immediately. He subconsciously wanted to reach out and touch his eye socket where the nerve had drilled in. But as soon as he moved, he found that he was still lying on Yu Hui's psychic device. Although the restraints on his hands and feet had been removed, he was still shackled on the device and could not move. The chapped lips made Chen Ming know that he had been unconscious for at least 4 hours. And everything on him that Yu Hui had not carefully checked before was taken away. The pistol, the whispering stone, and the portable psychic wave generator equipped with the whispering stone were all gone. But Chen Ming doesn't care about these external things now. After all, I'm actually still alive. Chen Ming tried to struggle for a few times, but found that he couldn't get away, and Yue didn't show any sign of wanting to talk to him. He simply threw his head back and closed his eyes. Concentrate on what just happened. First of all, he was certain that the thick nerve that transformed into his appearance in the dream must be the severed nerve that drilled into his eye socket before he fell into coma. The longing in its eyes after it became a human was directed at Chen Ming himself. Maybe it's a parasite that controls the body. It may also be some kind of insect related to psychic energy that has some special effect on psychic energy. After all, the device itself emits psychic fluctuations, and this nerve also emits psychic fluctuations. Then the problem arises. What does the steel jungle he was in just now represent? What does that mountain of debris in the steel jungle represent? What concept does it symbolize? Or is it his spiritual world? Although Chen Ming doesn't know the specific situation now, but he was certain that this steel jungle was most likely a place related to his psychic powers and his brain. Maybe you can ask your boss later. When it comes to psychic abilities, the boss definitely knows a lot more than he does. For now, Chen Ming plans to treat this steel jungle as his spiritual world for the time being. From this point of view, the nerve first physically penetrated into his eye socket and into his brain, entered his spiritual world, and wanted to replace Chen Ming's existence. The result was naturally a failure. It was completely crushed to death by the iron mind that suddenly appeared, and was finally absorbed in reverse by Chen Ming. But thinking about it this way, that nerve should still be in your mind, right? Chen Ming tried to use his mental power to gradually emanate from his brain, but he didn't feel anything strange, nor did he find anything in his mind that didn't belong here. Rather, Chen Ming felt that his mental power had greatly increased, and his spiritual power seemed to have also been enhanced a lot. And it is either temporarily enhanced through various equipment, or it becomes stronger in the actual sense. It seems to be the result of that nerve being absorbed. Chen Ming immediately checked his panel, which could most intuitively reflect the intensity of his psychic energy. Then he discovered that the number of controllable spaceships jumped from 4 to 10, more than tripling. You must know that the number of controllable spaceships is linked to Chen Ming's mental power. Since the number of controllable spaceships has doubled, his mental power should also have doubled. Chen Ming immediately thought about modifying something and testing it. But when he selected the target, he discovered that the iron ore had disappeared from the list of spacecraft controlled by him. Was it demolished by afterglow? This thought flashed through Chen Ming's mind. Then he suddenly noticed that he seemed to be able to sense the remaining fragments of the iron ore. On the planet he is on now, in a factory in the colony on the planet. Although only the wreckage of the iron ore is left, although it does not have any monitoring equipment to record the footage. But Chen Ming directly saw the situation around the wreckage of the iron mine. This should also be the effect brought about by the increase in spiritual power. These scattered fragments, which add up to thousands of pieces, were separated by Yue into different parts of the factory, but they were in the same situation, that is, they were also surrounded by a large amount of equipment. Sunset seemed to be studying the wreckage. Chen Ming took a quick glance and found that the black box of the iron ore was still there. He can even read the data directly with his brain. This kind of reading would not have any impact on the device itself, so he did it directly. Chen Ming skipped a lot of useless data recorded in the black box and jumped directly to after he was unconscious. At this time, the iron ore, like a normal spaceship, was paralyzed in place after losing Chen Ming's remote control. Contrary to Chen Ming's expectation, the 3 giant machines did not directly dismantle the iron mine, but stood by in place. Many robots in the Institute took advantage of this moment to swarm out and repair the entrance to the Institute and the dome outside. Everything looked very peaceful, and there were no signs that the iron ore would be destroyed by violence. In addition to the ongoing battle in space, although Chen Ming couldn't see the specific battle situation clearly, he could still see the continuous explosions that stretched across the entire front. This must have been a mistake on one side, causing the battle to become one-sided. As for who made the mistake, Chen Ming knew it when he saw the familiar appearance of Gauss cannon shells coming straight from space to the research institute. This was launched by the 14th Army Corps and was used when the possibility of rescue was finally lost. The shells used to take him out.
Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, please like, share, and subscribe.